That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Silencing, which will be in theaters, on digital, and on demand, August 14th, 2020, courtesy of Saban Films. It is the sophomore feature and English language debut of Belgian director Robin Pront.
What is Robin's first movie?
A film I really like. It's a 2015 title called The Ardennes, set in Belgium. Kind of a gritty neo-noir about these, dare I say, white trash brothers.
This movie is about a man named Rayburn, who's played by
Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, who of course is most notable for Game of Thrones, but has been in a number of things.
Okay.
A film we didn't review that opens a couple months ago is called Exit Plan. Danish director Jonas Arnby, about a suicide hotel, which I also kind of enjoyed.
Okay. So Rayburn works at like a wildlife preserve, or not wildlife, like
it's a sanctuary.
Sanctuary. But there are no animals.
Well, it's just you can't hunt there.
Right, we don't see anything. He just works in like a big like wooded area.
Right, in rural Canada.
In rural Canada. So the film opens with a couple of guys hunting on the reserve, and Rayburn stops them. It goes fine. They're not too happy about it. An important plot point is that his truck won't start, so he has to walk back to his little housing on the reserve. Then we cut to a sheriff, a woman played by
Annabelle Wallis,
who looked familiar to me.
Well, she's in the first Annabelle film.
Her name's Annabelle, and she's in the Annabelle film?
Yeah.
Oh.
Remember, where's that apartment, in Pasadena or whatever? In
Burbank? No.
Is it Glendale?
It's not Glendale.
It's Pasadena. I don't know. She's also in that film that you really liked with Tom Cruise, the Mummy reboot. She's the female lead in that.
She's not the dark-haired one.
No. She's blonde.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, she plays Sheriff.
Gustafson.
Sheriff Gustafson.
Hey, Sheriff.
She, a body has been found.
Of a young woman.
A young woman whose body has been found. So we learned that Rayburn's daughter went missing like 5 years ago. So when he sees on the news that...
Well, and it's also important, we're told that he was once a notorious hunter who is now ironically protecting wildlife. And it's because his daughter disappeared that he lost the lust for killing.
Okay, makes sense, I guess.
Very the deer hunter.
So he sees a young woman's body has been found, so he wants more information. It's not his daughter. On the reserve, Rayburn has like a bunch of surveillance, like cameras everywhere. Although he doesn't have a phone.
Yeah, no phone.
No phone, but he has like Nest cameras everywhere. But he sees someone like creeping around in like a hunter's costume. It looks like the person's dressed like, I thought it was Bigfoot, but apparently this is like common hunting.
Yeah, it's like hunting gear.
It looks like he's like a big bag of leaves or something. So he sees this like person out in the reserve hunting. So he goes out to check on it, and the person shoots at him.
Well, he broke his camera. Whoever that person was broke his camera, so he goes to investigate and then gets shot with a
bow and arrow.
Which was also what killed the young woman, which is notable because within that obsidian chipped arrow there's initials.
That's right. The woman who's found initially, the young woman, there is an arrow stuck in her, and in it there are the initials NB.
M.
M like Mary? Oh, okay. MB. So Rayburn gets shot with the arrow, runs back to his place, sees on the camera, like he tends to himself, removes the arrow, stitches himself up, sees on the little surveillance camera that person is still out there, and there's a young woman being chased. So of course, instead of contacting the authorities, Rayburn goes out there to play vigilante and try to save this girl. He is able to find her and secure her. Okay, so also what's happening is the sheriff has a brother.
Brooks, played by Hero Fiennes Tiffin of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, okay. So her brother, the sheriff's brother, gets into some trouble. She bails him out. And while they're driving back from wherever she picked his ass up from to his place, she's kind of arguing with him. It's notable that he starts cracking his like knuckles and she tells him to stop. But as they're driving back, he's like, please don't go this way. Like, go a different way. And she's like, no, I have somewhere to be after I drop you off. I need to go this way. And then we see a barn in the distance and he's triggered. And then the sheriff is like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. So obviously something has happened to him at this barn.
Mm-hmm. And there's another scene where she's like, is it time to talk about what happened in the barn?
Spoiler alert, they don't ever talk about what happened in that barn, which was really frustrating.
Well, but we get that she expresses regrets and guilt about not adopting her brother, like when she left town. So there's this whole historical trauma that's...
Well, keep that on your brain movie because we'll get back to it. But so then Rayburn has this girl in his place and the person hunting her makes it into Rayburn's like home. Mm-hmm. And there's a bit of a showdown. Rayburn is able to knock out the perpetrator, right? Mm-hmm. But while that's happening, the sheriff makes her way to Rayburn's house. Mm-hmm. So when the sheriff like enters the house, she sees that like something's happening. There's a young girl there.
Who's dead.
Who's dead because the perpetrator like shot her with an arrow or stabs her with an arrow. So of course the sheriff is reacting like Rayburn did it. And he's like, no, it's that person over there. And she turns around and the man who he knocked out or person he knocked out is getting back up. Mm-hmm. So then of course she's like, oh, it's him. So she points her gun at the perpetrator and she hears him like crack his knuckles like her brother, like Brooks. Uh-huh. So this bitch turns around and shoots Rayburn.
And says to the person she thinks is her brother, go home. But Rayburn is able to escape.
He's able to escape in a truck and find his ex-wife, estranged wife, ex-wife and her new man, who is also a cop, but in a different, like sheriff in a different county. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm missing something.
No, they instead of taking it to the hospital.
I know what I'm missing. Before this happened, the first time the person out in the reserve shot at him, he noticed that he was driving a pickup truck.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Like an F-150. So he takes his key and like etches out an X, like in the rear driver, like fender of the truck. Okay. So he
Important to note, also, as the title
many things.
As the title indicates, the young woman's body is found, and the girl that he discovers, they've had their larynx, voice box removed.
They have a scar on their throat. The one he's found cannot speak, so we assume that they've had their vocal cords removed. Okay. So Rayburn goes to his ex-wife and her cop husband, whatever, tells them what's going on. They say, we have to get you to a hospital. He says no, because the sheriff's she did this to me. So they take him to like
an RV that's in an unsavory part of town, kind of near like a crack den.
Yeah, it's like a big ass compound with all these like crackheads and criminal people who all hang out there and everyone knows it. Because even the sheriff goes there prior to all this to look for her brother. Mm-hmm. So it's like this area where all the bad people are. So the ex-wife and the cop guy take Rayburn to this place. A doctor comes in to stitch him up. While they're there doing that, they see Brooks, apprehend him. He breaks into the space where Rayburn's being treated by the doctor and like assaults the doctor. He gets away. So we presume that it's the brother, Brooks, who has committed these crimes. That's the assumption. Okay, but so now Rayburn's all hemmed up. So he's out driving and he thinks he sees the truck. That he marked. And the first time he sees it, it's the wrong truck. But then he sees the truck again and follows it in a really awkward, like, it's not a chase scene, but he's like following this person in like, this rural area, like right up on them.
Very close proximity.
Like, you're not fooling anyone. And then he follows this person, because this person lives like in a big house, like a windy road, and he just follows him right into this person's house. Rayburn gets out of his truck with a screwdriver, like he's going to assault this man. And when the man gets out of his truck, seemingly not aware that there's this person following him for all these miles, It's this like rickety little old man, which doesn't, scale with like what he thinks this man has done. So he goes, "Where's your son?" And the old man's like, "I don't have a son. Like, it's just me here in this house." And Rayburn tries to play him. So he goes, "Well, the person who drove this truck helped me with like a flat tire or something. I want to thank him." And the old man goes, "Oh, maybe it's my neighbor up the street. He likes to borrow my truck from time to time." So Rayburn just walks his ass right up the street and walks into this house. Like, he has no cares. Walks around the house, goes down into the basement and sees that there's like an operating room. And there is a young girl on the operating table with her throat cut wide open, like surgery has just been performed. So obviously this is the killer.
Are you going to reveal who the killer is? You should probably stop watching if you really don't want to know.
Well, we spoil everything anyway.
Sure, but I think this is one of those films that if you are going to like it at all, it's based on that element of, I guess, surprise.
Okay, so you've been warned. So while Rayburn is down there, like, seeing what's happening, the killer walks up behind him and, like, stabs him in the neck to, like, put him down, tranquilize him, and it's the doctor. It's the doctor who hemmed him up, like, the day before or earlier that day. So that's the killer. The doctor killer takes Rayburn back out to the reserve because he wants to hunt him. So he gets all dressed up in his shit.
Like, as one would do.
Makes no sense. But Rayburn gets the upper hand, knocks this fool out. Another plot point is there's some kind of like bunker in the reserve. It looks like a fallout shelter or something. It's like dug into the ground with these two big swinging doors, and it's covered in like camouflage. So Rayburn decides that he's going to, like, there are spikes in there somehow, and Rayburn throws the doctor killer into the hole. But before he does it, the sheriff shows up, and she's like, "Don't do it, like, this is not right. Let this man have his day in court. Let him rot in jail." And Rayburn's like, "No, I want vengeance because I know this man is responsible for my missing daughter." Throws him in there. The doctor killer's impaled, but still alive. And so Rayburn just closes the doors and lets him die in the dark. And then he looks at the sheriff and says, "Well, now we're even. Because, bitch, you tried to kill me yesterday over your brother who you were going to let get away with this crime." And then that's the end of the film. Okay. All right. My first note is this movie was doing too much. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead.
Well, it's like the height of these kind of grisly whodunits would have been, Silence of the Lambs, which I thought you think of because of the props with how the macabre details about how these girls are murdered in this signature. But at the same time, anybody that's had any kind of been on any kind of investigation would be like, oh, this would indicate somebody that would have access to or knowledge of surgery, etc. It's a small town.
Well, that's a
Canada.
very big point because, we only see one girl missing and she has the, missing whatever.
Sure, but immediately that would be like, oh, that's
right.
strange.
And
the profile would be.
They don't really get a chance to investigate the second one because everything happens so fast. But yes, I mean, that's to the audience, that is like, because now we've seen it 3 times.
Well, I think that's the problem with the film is it's like a choo-choo train. It just goes right along, and we aren't ever allowed to sit in anxiety or trepidation or any kind of character development. It's like if a few less red herrings were there, perhaps we could have focused on these broken humans, which we could have empathized with.
Yes, that's a good point because my next note is about Rayburn, the character. Like, so he's obviously this sad man who's all alone. His missing daughter is what led his marriage to dissolve. So he has this job in the middle of nowhere, just kind of like checking on things. Like, he's obviously a sad, miserable man. But then it's just like, okay, so he's this person. He has this truck that doesn't work. He doesn't have a phone. Like, he wants vengeance for his missing daughter. But then as the audience, I didn't, like, obviously I care about some missing person, but we don't even get to know the daughter. We don't really see any.
And that's fine. We
don't need to, but I think
we should know him.
Right. So when you add it all together, it's like, I really don't know this man. I really don't understand the circumstances around his missing daughter, the strain it put on his marriage. There are a lot of assumptions made. as to getting from where we find him to him willing to risk it all, because he's reckless throughout the entire film.
Well, also
he's approaching people, following people, walks into a house.
Also, the profound transition of being somebody that's loved to kill things and suddenly no longer has a taste for it because, as he explains, his daughter didn't like it, which is part of what made the subtext in Cimino's The Deer Hunter so powerful, is when the De Niro character decides that after Vietnam and Christopher Walken killing himself, he can't kill an animal anymore.
Right. Okay. Well,
I think it's a first-time script. Also, Robin Pront inherited this from another director who was going to take this on, Anders Engström, who is well-versed in television. And Pront did co-write his first film, so maybe, perhaps, he didn't have as much creative control.
Okay. Well, the sheriff, that lady, her character is also...
She does some pretty desperate things that needed to... I need to understand how she could have done them or what... Because we're also reminded...
She's up for re-election.
Well, on several occasions, that she's like, congratulations on getting this position. I thought she was newly minted.
Well, there was a sign saying vote for... Oh, so maybe it was either maybe she was either recently put in that position or she's up for...
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like... So it's made clear that either she's new or about to re-up, and because one cop tells her, many of us are happy you're here. So it's clear people don't really care for her. Her relationship with her brother, I was so frustrated. What happened in that damn barn? They made this big deal out of him being, having this post-traumatic anxiety about the barn.
And in fact, he has locked someone up in the barn that had beat him up.
That's another, because at a point before we think it's him the killer, because of the cracking of the knuckles, he asks his sister, I did something really bad. Would you be able to accept it? So it's okay, well, so you're not the killer. And what'd you do in that damn barn? What happened in the barn? You did something really bad, but all it amounted to was you beating up some guy and locking him in. Okay, that's not that bad.
On another positive note, though, I do really like the look of the film, and it was shot by one of my favorite current cinematographers, Manu Dacosse, who's done a variety of art house genre films like Evolution and Alleluia, and Fabrice Duwels uses him a lot. Everything that he shot is usually fantastic looking, and this film is not an exception in that regard.
It does look good. My, last gripe would be the character of the doctor / the killer. I had to write it down because he says, I always took the ones no one would miss. So what the fuck are you talking about?
The doctor's own daughter was killed in a drunk driving accident, right?
She was killed by some drunk drivers.
So he is killing the girls... He's killing young women that he predicts would grow up to be reckless human beings and do things like drinking and driving.
Which, that doesn't read to me, I don't understand the connection.
Not for him to go...
want to hunt them. You're taking out these bitches' vocal cords and hunting them.
And then he's playing the most dangerous games with them on a wildlife sanctuary.
It's too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
It's because I didn't really watch the TV series Hannibal, but you would have it on, and some of those elaborate...
Let me tell you something. Hannibal, those
are over the top. Some bitch with antlers and...
They are over the top. They are. But
that felt like this to me.
Sure. But Hannibal's a little different because they're investigating these particular sorts of crimes. This guy, it just seems like his motivation doesn't match the type of killing he's doing.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And also
to ruthlessly hunt young girls. We watched Cherry Falls the other day.
And then Cherry Falls is a movie with Brittany Murphy
from 2000. Mm-hmm.
And the premise is basically a woman in high school was raped by a bunch of guys, had a son, and now 20 some years later the son is a teacher at the same school and he's hunting virgins.
Yeah.
But it's first of all, how do you know they're virgins? Because one of the people he kills is the boy.
Yeah.
How do you know he's a virgin?
Unsubstantiated.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it
was about that ridiculous to me. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I don't have anything else. What would you give this movie?
I think 2.5 is fair, like especially on a technical level. And I do think, despite the lack of characterization, I think Nikolaj Coster-Waldau and Annabelle Wallis are good. They do give decent performances. So 2.5 out of 5, I think, is fair.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
Mm-mm.
All right. Bye.
Bye.